Hey, this is Chance from Oregon Paddle Sports.
And this is Jarryd.
We're here today taking a look at the lineup of current Designs recreational kayaks.
And we'll also be taking the boats out on the water to let you know how they paddle.
All right, so first we're going to focus on the Solara lineup. The Solara comes in 4 different sizes. The shortest, the 100, which is 10 foot, the 120, which is 12 foot, the 135, which is 13.5 feet, and the 145 tandem, it's 14.5 feet, and it's a tandem, so it's for 2 people. These kayaks have a really big cockpit, which it almost makes it kind of like a sit-on-top kayak. It's so easy to get in and out of. And what's really great about these is they still include some really great padding on them, so you can get into an athletic position and brace your knees up against the padding. These guys have adjustable foot braces. What's really great about the Solara lineup is that they include a front bulkhead and a front hatch on every single model. The front bulkhead is going to act as a float, so if your kayak were to flip over, it's basically impossible for this thing to sink as long as both of the hatches stay closed. It has some bungee rigging for your gear on the front, and it has a huge hatch in the rear that'll hold lots of gear. It's got toggles on the front and back to make it easy to carry, and it's got 2 paddle parks, so you can put up your paddle right here and bungee it in on the side to make that convenient. And it features current Designs dimension seat. This seat is adjustable in several different ways. If you lift this up, you can adjust the angle of the seat to your liking. If you twist this, you can adjust it for the height, and then you can also adjust this strap here to push the seat back or forward for a more upright or more relaxed position. And you get a little bit of storage back here as well for your gear. I personally love these boats because they have such a huge cockpit, and I like to put my dog between my legs. All right, so we talked about how the Solara comes in 4 different sizes. Right here, the Solara 120 is basically a clone of the 100, just with 2 additional feet. The 135 is quite a stretch, and this one has hardware on it to put a skeg. A skeg is like a rudder, but it doesn't move. It's going to help with tracking in the wind and a couple other situations. And then the 145T is a tandem boat. And what's cool, it has all the same seat adjustments as the Solara 100 that I showed you, but you are able to move the front seat forward and back in order to apportion space better for your gear and people. The best part about these boats being so wide, they're 38 inches wide and 13 inches deep. The best part about them being so wide is that they're really stable. So your ability to just like hop in this thing and get going is great. Are they as fast as some other kayaks, that are a little bit thinner? No, but that's not what they're about. They're for getting in, having fun, and having really good performance despite those things.
Here we have the current Designs Kestrel models. It is their other recreational kayak, and it comes in a 12 foot and a 14 foot. They're very similar to the Solara lineup. A couple main differences is in the 12 foot, it is not going to have a front bulkhead, so there's no front compartment for storage, but it does have a large compartment in the back here, very similar to the Solara. It's going to have the same seat as the Solara, so it's going to be adjustable from the back to raise up and down, as well as being able to raise from the front right here. You also have adjustable foot pegs as well as padding for your thighs and knees once you're in the boat. Another difference from the Solara with the Kestrel 120 is it's going to be a more narrow cockpit. The boat is only 25 inches wide and it's 13 inches deep, so it's a much shallower boat. It's going to feel longer when you're sitting in it compared to a Solara, with it being more narrow and having a narrower cockpit. With that being said, The main reason they have a more narrow cockpit on this one is it's a slightly higher performing boat than the Solara, so it's going to track a little bit better in the water, but still very maneuverable and easy to turn. Going on to the Solara, or to the Kestrel 140, this one does have a front hatch, and it's a little bit different than on the Solara. This one has the buckles, which then allow you to enter into this front hatch. Gives you plenty of storage space here. Another big difference with the Kestrel 140 is going to be the addition of a rudder. These are optional on this boat. So how the rudder is going to work, it is right now in the up position. To bring it down, we're just going to take this red handle right here, and we're just going to pull it, and that will bring our rudder straight down. And if you're wondering how you turn your rudder, inside here we have adjustable foot pegs that also act as steering for the rudder. This will turn it right or left depending on which foot you're using. And they are also adjustable for height. Alright guys, next we're going to take some of these boats out and put them in the water and give you some of our impressions on how they paddle.
Alright, so here we are at Dexter Reservoir on this beautiful fall day.
And today we're going to be paddling some kayaks.
Yeah, buddy. I'm out here right now in the Solara 120, and it seems to handle pretty well. It has a nice big cockpit, tons of room for my feet and my legs. And here Jarryd comes in the Solara 100. How does she handle?
Good. She turns real easy. That's the plus of having a 10-foot boat, is that it's going to be very maneuverable and turn on a dime for you. Might make it a little harder to paddle it across the lake, but paddling around here close to the dock is very fun and easy to maneuver.
Alright, so I'm in the Solara 120, and first of all, I think it tracks a little bit straighter than the 100. Like, you know, are you gonna want to do Puget Sound in this? No, but I think that it handles the little ripples from, it's a little windy today, but it seems to handle the little ripples a little bit better than what I know of the Solara 100. These are our two most popular selling boats.
Alright guys, so in just a second we're going to take the Solara 100 and the 120 and paddle them down to the buoy and see if we can figure out which one is a little faster.
3,
2, 1, go!
Here's that 2 feet makes a
Slight bit of difference. Yeah, I felt myself really wanting to kind of get pulled one way or another, really having to fight to keep it straight. But other than that, it's really stable and handled the water really well.
What do you think?
So compared to the 100, the 120 definitely tracks a little bit better. Just kind of knifes through the water a little bit more effortlessly. You can feel yourself kind of getting further with each paddle stroke. But with that being said, the 10-footer definitely turns a little bit easier and it's easier to maneuver around.
I noticed that the water kind of comes over the bow a little bit.
Definitely it splashes up onto the bow of the 100 a little bit more.
This boat feels stable, but I definitely noticed because it turns so much faster, I am kind of constantly having to correct, do a double stroke on the left side in order to keep going the direction that I want. Whereas I feel that the 12-foot tracks much better. All right, so out here in the Solara 135, it feels like every stroke just kind of takes you that much further, and you just kind of continue on. You glide a lot longer. Definitely feels very stable. The Solara 135 definitely changes directions a little slower, but I think that pays dividends on a day like today. When it's a little bit choppy out, it feels definitely the most stable, definitely straight line, certainly, than the other two. Though this boat is, you know, significantly heavier, so you do have to figure out a way to transport it. But luckily, we have solutions for that.
So right now I'm paddling the Kestrel 140. We've got Chance over here in the 120. As you can see, that thing is lightning fast, still super stable, and able just to cruise across the choppy waters.
So it's appropriate that this Kestrel 120 is red, because compared to the Solaras, it feels like a sports car. You definitely have to engage your core a lot more in order to stay upright, but that also makes for a more powerful paddling experience. I have a lot less room in the cockpit, but I'm still really comfortable. Jarryd has the Kestrel 140. What do you think so far?
So far, it's really fast. It's a lot of fun. Having the rudder makes kind of changes the game completely, especially having the foot-controlled rudders, or the rudder being controlled by your foot pegs. So it kind of allows you just to paddle freely, and once you kind of get your feet figured out, you can just use your feet to turn yourself while you just keep paddling, and you never really have to use your paddle to make any turns unless you want to do like a real quick maneuver. All right, so now we've switched it up. We've got Chance in the 140 and myself in the 120. We're gonna paddle around a little bit and let you know what we think of them.
It definitely makes a difference on a day like today. The wind's kind of going in all directions. You can use it to kind of like point into the wind and maintain a straighter direction.
Yeah.
Like that.
Feels like you're having to make less corrective strokes with it. You can allow your like rudder and your feet to do that.
Absolutely. It doesn't turn very quickly when it's just turned into a skeg where you're not moving it, but as soon as you figure out how to work it with your feet, it actually works really well. I also think this boat is an inch or two wider and definitely feels very stable, and just kind of cuts through the water. All right, Jarryd, what do you think of the Kestrel 120?
120, it's a really fun boat. Compared to the 145, it's definitely not quite as fast or tracks quite as well, but for it being, you know, a little bit smaller, lighter, it's still a lot of fun, and it just kind of depends on what you're looking for a little bit. But for just a fun day out on the water, it's really hard to beat the Kestrel 120. It's really fun, reactive, very fast, you know, still stable. Definitely not as stable as the Solara or the Kestrel 140, but for it being only 25 inches wide, it does really well.
All right, so after our day on the water, I think that my favorite boat is actually the Solara 120. I really like the blend of stability, the blend of features with this boat, the huge cockpit, and I like its price. I believe it'll retail for $9.99, and I like its weight over the bigger boats. So, you know, with all those things kind of while you're thinking about them, I think that this is a really good mix of all those features and a really great boat for someone who's completely new to the sport to someone that is a little more advanced. I think it's a really great all-around package.
All right, guys, so after taking all the different boats out, I think the Kestrel 140 is probably my favorite. A couple things that really stands out to it for me is going to be how well it tracks and the how stable it is. For it being 14 feet, it's still nice and wide, but it tracks really well, it maneuvers well, and having the option of having the rudder on the back is really great, especially if we're doing longer distances across the lake. Maybe one of the downsides to it is going to be the weight and size of it. So if you're looking for something a little bit smaller but still is going to track really well in the water and is a little lighter and sporty, the Kestrel 120 is a great option.